Hi, it's me, Vicky Marie. Welcome to my channel if you're a new viewer, and even more welcome to my channel if you've watched my channel before and you've come back to watch me again. Thank you so much. If you're already a subscriber to my channel, again, thank you so much. If you've not subscribed yet, maybe you'll consider subscribing. It's free and you can cancel it at any time, but it really helps me out. Another thing I want to say is thank you to all my members. I'm looking forward to the next Thursday night members only live stream. So all of you have joined, thank you so much. And also thank you to anyone who's participated in any way on my channel by just watching, liking, subscribing, participating in the chat, trolled me, sent me an email, all those ways, sent me a Ko-fi, bought me a Ko-fi, sent me a super, PayPal'd me. Thank you so much for helping my channel to grow. Thank you. Okay, so today I am going to talk about Nicola Bulley. For those of you, and there may be some of you out there who don't know about this case, the reason that, let me just tell you briefly what happened. Nicola was a 45-year-old mother of two girls, went to walk her dog back in January. I think it was the 27th of January, Friday, disappeared off the face of the planet, and was found 23 days later in the river alongside where she'd been walking with her dog, very sadly drowned. A lot of mysteries surrounding this case. I will put a link in the description to to my playlists on this case, because the mystery surrounding it, the police didn't deal with it very well. The information given out was uncertain. The inquest was shambolic, literally just nothing, no answers came out of the inquest. In fact, if anything, the inquest on June the 26th created more questions than answers. So for this reason, everyone's still sort of intrigued by it, not happy with the verdict, which the family seem to be happy with. But there's lots of people who feel there's a lot of untied loose ends. And it's resulted in some really quite wild conspiracy theories, sort of almost ranging from cover-ups by the police to abducted by aliens. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that today. What we're going to talk about today, the reason that I'm making this video is, this particular video is I want to look at what the police should have done when Nicola first went missing, because I want to look at the College of Policing's recommendations for what should happen in the case of a missing person. I also then want to look at some sort of news items and things from the time, because what I've found very interesting is looking back over things that were being said then in the context of after the inquest and what we know now, and seeing how incongruous they are. Why were these things being said then, and now this is, you'll see when I come to the things. The other reason is, of course, we are waiting with bated breath for the result of an enquiry. The Lancashire police, the police force that was dealing with this case that have come in for a lot of criticism, they launched an inquiry on themselves. Basically, we're waiting for the result. We know what the result will be. Lessons to be learned, no further action. You could they probably wrote it back in February when they launched it. I doubt if anything's been done since then, but I could be wrong. Things could come up. Things could come up that we didn't know about, like we might find out why the guy did not, because there was a welfare check on this lady very shortly before she unfortunately died. And also she had to go to A&E for a scan on her head where she had a head injury. These are various things that lead people to believe that they may have been domestic violence in this relationship. Again, nothing, we have no proof of any. I think this case is enduring in its mystery because there is no proof of anything. No proof of foul play, no proof of accidental death, which was the inquest result, no proof of suicide, no proof of third-party involvement, no proof of anything. They're the only thing. We don't really even have exact proof that she was down by the riverside that morning. But anyway, as I say, I've made many videos on this case, and I will put the playlist in the description. It'll probably pop up at some point at the top of your screen if you're interested in knowing more, if you don't already know. Many of you that are watching will have already watched my videos, but sometimes it's good to go back and watch because we do forget things, don't we? Anyway, the first thing I want to look at is the College of Policing's recommendations of what you should do, what the police should do, not what we should do, if there is a missing person. They have their authorised professional practice, their app. That was another initials. The initials always confused me. When I saw APP, I was thinking, app? Have they got an app on missing persons? But anyway, that's what it stands for. Authorised Professional Practice for Missing Persons. And this is the official source of professional practice for policing. Now, it's very, there's a lot to it. So I'm going to try and pick out what I think. I mean, you can always go to this if you want to see the whole thing, every little thing. You can go to the website and look. I just want to look at the things that particularly apply in the Nicola Bulley case. So I just explained what the College of Policing is. It's committed to helping police officers and staff in England and Wales take appropriate and proportionate action to deal with people who are reported missing. A missing person report should be recognised as an opportunity to identify and address risks. Police actions and resources should be directed in the most effective way that makes people safe and prevents crime. This means prioritising activity so that the most intensive work addresses the needs of those missing people who are assessed as being at the greatest risk. Okay, so bearing that in mind, missing persons. Oops. That. Oh. So I presume they've got a checklist that, when someone's reported missing, because many people are reported missing and literally turn up within a couple of hours. It must be it's a very difficult area. But the thing is, I think what the police have got to be wary of, which I think is something that they don't always do, and they're human beings, is they don't take each case individually. Because I suppose if you've had like 100 missing persons cases in your working year so far up to April or whatever, and they've all literally come back either later or the next day, they've all turned up again safe and well, then maybe when you get another missing persons case, you think, oh, this is just going to go the same as that. But of course, they're all individual. They're all individual, and even when they seem typical. So I think that's the challenge that the police have got, is to deal with each case individually and not be coloured by the fact of what has happened to, the 100 cases before. Okay, so going missing should be treated as an indicator that the individual may be at risk of harm. The safeguarding of vulnerable people is paramount, and a missing person report should be recognised as an opportunity to identify and address risks. It's very interesting, this, I think. So the reasons for a person deciding to go missing, if they have decided, of course, may be complex and linked to a variety of social or family issues. 3 key factors should be considered in a missing person investigation: protecting those at risk of harm, minimising distress and ensuring high quality of service to the families and carers of missing persons, and prosecuting those who perpetrate harm or pose a risk of harm when this is appropriate and supported by evidence. Okay, so then it goes on to say who they can contact: the UK Missing Persons Unit or the NCA Major Crime Investigative Support. So then we've got a definition of missing. Anyone whose whereabouts cannot be established will be considered as missing until located and their well-being or otherwise confirmed. All reports of missing people sit within a continuum of risk from no apparent risk through to high-risk cases which require immediate intensive action. So, okay, you've got this little continuum of risk. You've got no apparent risk, just absent, low risk, medium risk, high risk. And the level of police activity, of course, ascends depending on what the risk assessment is. Now, if I remember rightly, in the police interview, in the press interview, Rebecca Smith described Nicola Bulley as high risk. Anyway, so the following table should be used as a guide. So you've got no apparent risk. No apparent risk of harm to either the subject or the public. Actions to locate the subject and or gather information should be agreed with the informant, that's the person that's reported them missing, and a latest review time set to reassess the risk. Then we've got low risk. The risk of harm to the subject or the public is assessed as possible but minimal, and in that case proportionate enquiries should be carried out to ensure that the individual has not come to harm. Then we've got medium risk. The risk of harm to the subject or the public is assessed as likely but not so serious. And this category requires an active and measured response by the police and other agencies in order to trace the missing person and support the person reporting. Now we then go to high risk, which Becky had said, the police officer had said that Nikki was. The risk of serious harm to the subject or the public is assessed as very likely. This category almost always requires the immediate deployment of police resources. Action may be delayed in exceptional circumstances, such as searching water or forested areas during hours of darkness. A member of the senior management team must be involved in the examination of initial lines of enquiry and approval of appropriate staffing levels. Now, as far as I know, Rebecca Smith was not brought in until the Monday. Whether that's because it was a weekend, I don't know. Such cases should lead to the appointment of an investigating officer and possibly a senior investigating officer and a police search advisor. Now then, risk of serious harm has been defined as a risk which is life-threatening and or traumatic, and from which recovery, whether physical or psychological, can be expected to be difficult or impossible. Now, let's go back to what happened with Nikki. Nikki took her children, presumably this is the official line, Nikki took her 2 children to school that Friday morning as normal, and then took her dog to walk by the River Wyre in St Michael's on Wyre as normal. There's only 10 minutes unaccounted for, apparently, where, you know, she was seen, she was spoke to people at the school, she was seen at the fields near the river. But it turned out at the inquest there was also a man in black seen that hasn't been accounted for. There were fishermen seen that haven't come forward or been accounted for. There were screams heard that haven't been accounted for. But anyway, we didn't know all about this till the inquest. So she sent a couple of messages and emails. She logged onto a Teams work call, but apparently she didn't speak at all, and apparently that was normal. She was just listening. Her phone was left on the bench. The dog's harness was found on the river bank, and Nikki had disappeared into thin air when somebody else came along at round about 9:30, 9:33, or was it 9:22? I mean, the timeline is very sort of fluid. Nobody's exactly sure. Somebody came, found the dog loose, found the phone, found the harness, and that's when everything started happening. But Nicola had disappeared into thin air, apparently, literally disappeared. Because if, you know, as they say, she'd fallen into the river. If you know this river, it's a shallow river. She couldn't be seen floating away. She should, if she died of cold water shock, as was decided at the inquest, she should have just floated straight to the bottom. But there were, you know, when I say floated to the bottom, you're talking about 3 foot of water. You know, you're not talking about a massive, you know, a great big deep river or a fast flowing river. So, do you know, the more I talk about, when I talk about it like this, I just see how ridiculous the whole thing is. But anyway, so let's go back to the missing persons, what they're supposed to do. So now, it was said later that she was identified very quickly as a high risk. So we're going to look at the high risk. So you've got the initial report, risk identification, presuming she was identified as high risk. Should be an immediate response. Assess the risk through decision-making guide. Immediately, because she was high risk, immediately investigate, initial search, full managed search, the police search officer, the senior investigative officer, resources, etc. So you can see that as somebody is declared as high risk, it sort of accelerates, doesn't it? Everything is supposed to accelerate so quickly. And to be fair, that first day there were a lot of searches made, and I'm going to look at some of the things that were said on the day so that we can judge it. And certainly what the police said, though I honestly just don't think it's true. I don't think they jumped in quickly enough in this case. I really don't. So there was put it this way, nothing was cordoned off. So the bench where Nikki's phone was found, the harness, the dog, nothing was taken for forensic examination. No, you know, it wasn't cordoned off as a scene where something may have, bearing in mind that they didn't know yet what happened to her. You could argue we still don't know what's happened to her, but they lost all that valuable time, that golden hour where you're supposed to be gathering information. They lost it because nothing, no forensics whatsoever were done. Anyway, so also the police lied, because when the police were asked specifically, was there any reason? Because if anyone of you that actually remember the early days, you know, I just remember hearing that a woman had gone missing walking her dog. I remember thinking, oh gosh, I hope she hasn't been attacked. You know, because that's my first thought. Never even occurred to, because if you see the pictures of the river and how far the path is from the river, and she'd walk there every day for God knows how many years, how could she have fallen in the river? Of course, there's always the chance that she might have thrown herself in the river. But again, it doesn't make sense because the river's too shallow. She loved her dog like it was, another baby. She wouldn't have just left her dog running around. The dog was not wet. The dog had not been in the river. And the dog could swim and did swim often. So, there's so many things. But anyway, so the first thing that struck me, I thought, oh my God, I hope she hasn't been attacked. Because this is what happens, unfortunately, to women who walk their dogs alone in secluded places. But it turns out that they did know on that day that she had some issues. Her partner had said she had issues with the menopause, alcohol, and all this was revealed later on, which is disgusting, really, that her private details were released. They didn't have to release all the details. They just had to say she had some issues. But the police denied in the beginning that she had any issues. And the partner himself did an interview and did not mention that she had any issues. So, this was all said later. This is the other reason, and it turns out there was a welfare check done just before she disappeared, and the head injury that she had. There's too much in this case for it to be so cut and dried. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is what the College of Policing says. Now, this is going to come up in this inquiry that we're going to get the results of in the autumn. That's when we were told. So this inquiry was launched in February and it's going to take them till the autumn. We don't even know if that means September, October, November. What do they mean by the autumn? We haven't had a date that the results of this inquiry that they probably wrote on the first day that you could write yourself before the results of this inquiry come out. This is going to come into it because this is the procedure that they should have followed. So then it goes on to talk about minimum actions, etc. Now, I don't think that's... So the main thing to me is relevant, saying what the order, how the missing person investigations are supposed to be conducted. So let's just have a look at that. Missing persons investigations. So she's been categorized as missing. So it says the minimum will be the incident will be recorded, a risk assessment will be conducted, which apparently she was declared a high risk. An agreement will be made on the initial steps which should be taken, and a time will be set up to review the decisions that are made. Then we come to the hypothesis. Oh gosh, this was the hypothesis. So investigations in people should be careful not to confuse risk assessment with a hypothesis about the circumstances of the person going missing. For example, an elderly person wearing thin clothing who goes missing in winter is at high risk of harm. And this is the case, even if the hypothesis is that the missing person has gone to see a family member. So hypotheses can be improved by drawing on the knowledge of colleagues who have experience in the relevant area. And officers should avoid making assumptions. Assumptions were made immediately. The assumption that was made immediately in this case, in my opinion, was that Nicola had deleted herself, that she'd taken her own life. And they didn't look any further. That's why no forensics were taken. It was just an assumption. Information that's collected from each missing episode must be recorded to provide intelligence for current or future investigations as well as wider problem solving and safeguarding work. Anyway, then we've got the initial investigating officer, which I presume was Sally Riley, was the initial investigating officer. Let's see. Now, this to me is very important. How the investigation is conducted in the first few hours, see golden hour, after the report is made to the police may affect the outcome. So we've got the golden hour. Now, many of you have probably heard of the golden hour. I'm just going to look at it. Let's see. Oh no, it doesn't. That is referring me to there, but it doesn't say anything. Anyway, but basically, obviously, the golden hour is that first hour after someone's been reported missing, or in any crime, after a crime's been committed. The golden hour is the best chance you've got of finding out what's happened, because memories are fresh in witnesses' minds. 6 months down the line, people have forgotten things or embellished things, or the golden hour is when everybody's got their information. The forensic evidence, if there is any, is at its best, freshest. People's memories are fresher, and that is the golden hour. Now, then it goes on to talk about religious and cultural considerations, which don't come in, I don't think, in Nicola's case. And then the responsibilities of the first officer deployed are to establish the facts and keep accurate records of what was said and by whom. Now, I'll tell you, we've seen things that, Sally Riley initially said that the dog was found an hour later, but then later on it was said that the dog was found right in the moment when Nicola disappeared. So, there's lots of conflicting records, facts and records. And their responsibility is to make an assessment of the circumstances of the disappearance in order to judge the risks to which that person and the community are likely to be exposed. Now, this strikes me as strange even now, because now this case has been declared at the inquest to be accidental death, but nothing has been done to improve the safety of that area where they say she fell in and drowned within 10 seconds. So are they saying that people are walking there day in, day out with their dogs? Probably children are walking along there, and they haven't done anything to improve the safety, even though they think that a 45-year-old woman who's perfectly walks that way day in, day out and knows it like the back of her hand has mysteriously, accidentally fell to her death into this 3-foot deep tiny river where you can see to the bottom and has hardly any flow. Do you know, I'm going to put now, apparently today is this week is I haven't got my tin foil hat handy, so I'm going to put this on instead. I'm going to wear this in a couple of videos just to cheer people up. I'm only putting it on for a minute here while my head just boggles about what we're expected to believe about this case. But then I'm going to take it off because it is a serious video, this. But I will be doing, look out for the video where I'll be wearing this. Crazy. And, I'm glad I'm doing this and going over it all again, because the more you go over it again, it's not the more it seems more logical, it's the more it seems ridiculous. Anyway, then it goes on about they have to take statements, consider seizing electronic devices, computers, etc., obtain photos of the missing person, obtain details of their mobile phone, details of any vehicles that might have had access to, confirm if they've taken their passport with them, because it could have left the country, of course, consider obtaining any physical evidence of identity, fingerprints, DNA samples, etc. Anyway, So as I say, you can look at I'm not going to read out the whole thing because it's very exhaustive, which is good. You know, telling us what the police's action should have been. Very interesting. And I think that they did. If they did, my opinion, I did, and this is my opinion. Let me put my thing on to show it. It's my opinion. Any of you who've watched my videos will know I think the police were just wrong-footed right from the start. They didn't look. I don't know what happened to Nicola, but I think something nefarious happened to Nicola. Whether it was her partner, whether it was a third party, I don't know. I don't know, but something did, and I feel like the police. And this is what I've said right from the beginning, they made a cock up right from the beginning by not thinking of it as, and then they've been on catch up ever since. Now they say there's no evidence of third party involvement, but there were. There was a man seen at the scene. That was reported at the inquest. There were fishermen seen who have never come forward and said who they are. They may be perfectly innocent, but why, if they're perfectly innocent, why have they not come forward? You know, after all the appeals for them to come forward, why have they not come forward? The screams, the welfare check, the visit to A&E, you know, you could go on and on really. So that is my contention with the Nicola Bulley case. I think by the time they realised there might be more to it, I think it was too late. That's my personal opinion. Okay, so I've just realised I'm wearing green, so pink. I'm going to wear the pink. I must wear pink later when I'm doing a live later. I must wear pink so that my thing goes with it. So, right. So what do I want to show you next? So I want to look at, an article from the time. I'm going to look at a couple of articles from the time, and I want you to think about them now in how they would have seen then and now how they seem after the inquest and everything, how it sits, how these original articles, news, information sit now with what we know now. So this was the first one I wanted to look at. So this one was in the Daily Mail, I think. And it was about Mark Williams Thomas, what he had to say about it. Lancashire police still think the mortgage advisor fell into the river, but add there is no evidence to prove this happened. This is it. You cannot, this is my whole thing about the inquest. It should have been an open verdict. It should have been an open verdict because there is no proof that she fell into the river. You know, you can't, how can you just say, oh, it was accidental death, she fell into the river? But there's no evidence to prove this happened. Anyway, Mr. Williams Thomas said, I will be spending time up in St Michael's and Wyre next week to pull together a quick turnaround report of exactly what is known about the disappearance of Nicola Bulley. I will explore all the options, bring you a factual evidence analysis and dismiss some of the inaccuracies. I just want to go. So he, if you don't know who he is supposedly the ex-detective who exposed Jimmy Savile's crimes and investigated the abduction of Madeleine McCann. Yeah, he never got anywhere with that. He said that Oscar Pistorius wasn't guilty. I wouldn't say he's very good, to be honest. Anyway, he will now probe. Don't worry, Batman's on the way. Anyway, he's travelling to St Michael's on Wyre this week, and this was the 13th of February. So it was a week before Nicola was found. He hopes to rule out a number of outlandish theories aired by conspiracy theorists. It just makes me so angry, this. About the 45-year-old's disappearance. What is the difference between... Because So it's okay for the coroner to make, to come to a totally speculative conclusion with no evidence, because he's the coroner, so he can do that, make it up. I don't see the difference between what he said happened. I mean, I'm not even saying I know what happened. I don't, but some people are saying, oh, this happened or that happened. Well, what's the difference between what he says and what they say? Because he's got no proof either. So it just intrigued me, because later on he says, Miss Bulley's family and friends have repeatedly appealed to the public to continue to come forward with information, adding they do not agree with the police's theory. Partner Paul Ansell said last week he is 100% sure she's not in the river. Dear me. It comes after two men who appeared to be hiding their faces were allegedly spotted near her walking route the day before she went missing. A local resident said that two men who appeared to be wearing hoods or hats were near to St. Michael's Church just over 24 hours prior to Nicholas's disappearance. The witness claimed he reported this strange incident to the police, who took 9 days to respond before asking him for a statement. Remaining anonymous, he told The Sun, I first saw them about 7:45 on my way to work on the Thursday, the day before Nicola vanished. I drive that way every day, so I know the road well. I saw two men wearing dark clothing and hoods or hats and carrying fishing rods. Now, Rebecca sort of made fun of that, didn't she? She said, I don't think there's anything strange about seeing fishermen around the river. He said that he felt on edge as they seemed to want to hide their faces. And the same witness also reported seeing one of the men at a similar time the next day, again seeming to cover their face. I mean, to me, the thing is not that there was two men there with fishing rods. It was that those men haven't come forward. If you were there and you had gone fishing that day, and then the next day you see that they're appealing for anyone, to come forward who may have been there in these particular, you'd go forward, wouldn't you? You'd go forward. Why did they not come forward? So apparently he called officers who were appealing for information, but he says he heard nothing back several days. They weren't interested in that information. And he added, it's frustrating. It would have been much better if I had spoken to them straight away, as it was fresher in my mind. The golden hour. The golden hour. Mail Online has approached Lancashire Police regarding the allegations. There's Paul, there's Willow and Nicola. This was the, personally I don't take it. That was the timeline at the time. It's changed so often. Let's have a look at this. I haven't watched this one.
For me, personally, and again, this is just my opinion, I'm 100% convinced it's not the river. People don't just vanish into thin air. It's absolutely impossible. So something has happened. Something has happened. Find out what it is. Find out what it is. My plea now is, personally, I want every house, every garage, every outbuilding, the land scrutinised. I want it all searched. I want it all scrutinised. Every piece of it.
Yeah. So, of course, that was, how do I get back to where it was? Yeah, that was the famous interview. Paul saying that he was not in the river, because by then Peter Falding, the search expert, he'd gone along there and said she wasn't in the river. So, and there's lots, we have to decide, what do we think of him? In that interview, there were so many strange things in that interview. Anyway, the revelation comes as police have returned to properties in St. Michael's on Wyre Lancashire for the 4th time, as family and friends continue to share heartbreaking appeals for the safe return of the mother of 2. Today, those loved ones wrote messages of hope and support appealing for a safe return, including one from partner Paul Ansell, which read, "Nicky, I love you! Come home now." It's strange, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. What would you write in those circumstances? Come home now, though. It's like he's angry with her. And he did say that his emotions were anger. That was the first emotion that he said he had. Come home now. Did he... he doesn't seem to have any concern for her safety. Like, I hope you're safe wherever you are. Or so up to then, like, he didn't know where she was. It's almost as if he feels like she has gone off voluntarily or gone off with somebody else voluntarily. Come home now. Anyway, other messages included, "We need you home, Nicky. Never give up hope, and praying for your safe return." Seem more appropriate somehow. Now, I know that this is a lie. Detectives are said to have visited a local garage on Thursday requesting CCTV footage from the day before Miss Bulley vanished. I know from somebody whose partner... Anyway, that is not true. They may have done, but they were still looking for CCTV footage long after Nicola was actually found deceased. They were still going to interviewing people then. They had already taken images from the day of her disappearance. It's unknown if the new CCTV request was in relation to the witness's account or not. CCTV is also understood to have been obtained from the Grapes Village pub. Yeah, so when this article was written, the search was reaching its 17th day. And it went on another 6 days before her body was finally found, not by the police, but by a psychic walking along the towpath. Okay, so Mark Williams-Thomas, a former police detective who exposed Jimmy Savile's crimes, said officers needed to keep an open mind and focus on key areas. And ex-Scotland Yard veteran Mick Neville believes that what appeared to be an undecipherable riverbank disappearance could have a simpler solution. Now Mail Online runs through their expert thoughts on how the mystery could end. River, why were divers focusing on that stretch of the water? So he said he found it strange that they were searching that specific area. She has been missing for over 14 days now. She could be 4 miles away, but she wasn't. She was about 1.5 miles away, I think. I would have put an object of her weight and size in the river to estimate how far she may have gone. That may be a way to track if she's in the water. Anthony Knott, the firefighter who died 3 years ago, went into the river Ouse and his body was not found till 3 weeks later. It shows the search should be hugely expanded. They must do everything they can to stop a body getting to the sea where it will be lost. Now, I don't know if the river Ouse is bigger, smaller. This is a tiny river. I've been there. I've got footage of it. Small. This is a garage. Yeah, I went here to this garage. We went here. There's a little loo round the corner there. We went, bought a bottle of water and just went to the loo. But yeah, that's the first place you'd go, isn't it? To the garage. Let's have a look at this video. Come home safe, love the Myers. Nikki, I love you. Come home now. That's the one. But yeah, come home now. Yeah. But not, there's nothing up there now on that bridge. Nothing. Yeah. And that little building, the bench is there. Yeah, there's the bench. Oh, this is the river. This is the river she's supposed to have fallen in accidentally and drowned within 10 seconds. Gosh, I'm glad I started looking at this because these things you forget. Yeah, there we are. There's a bench. There's a river. Look. It's not even moving and it's shallow. So she's supposed to have fallen in there. And don't forget, within a couple of hours, they were in there looking for her. They didn't find her. So this is the Underwater Search and Marine Unit. Didn't find her. That's the most flow you ever see, this little bit of a flow. Now, the police went in a line down the whole river. So basically, despite all those people searching, you know, honestly, there were cadaver dogs, there were waders. Oh gosh, I'm just sick of repeating all the things. This is where she's supposed to have fallen in. Come on. I'm glad I've seen this because when I went there, all the foliage had grown up and you couldn't see the gradient that bad. I mean, there is a little, she'd have to be stood right on the edge here to fall in. And even then she could have got out. That's the bench where her phone was. A lot of us know about that. Just impossible in my eyes. Now, even if she jumped in, you know, to delete herself, I think you'd be struggling to, you know, you'd either have to jump in, be pushed in, but even then, you just stand up. It's 3 foot deep. Literally was like Jack and Ori, that inquest. Oh. Now there's a little track here which was interesting because if somebody had, you know, set up a decoy or whatever, there's lots of places that you could go out of that area, lots. But one that struck me was this, you know, that's the official way you come in through the stile. But there's a little track that way. Yeah, it's flowing a little bit there. But it's not really flowing in a sense it would take you away, is it? all the police and everything seemed to walk quite easily and everything. They went in all the bushes and stuff. I can tell you now, this is going to be an enduring mystery. Nobody's ever going to accept it. Okay, now let's see, what else have I got to show you? Gosh, it's turned into a much longer video than I thought it was going to, because once you get going on this, you're like going completely down the rabbit hole, aren't you? I want to show you this. So this is the Bowland Pennine Mountain Rescue Team, and this is their post from earlier in the year. They were called out on the 27th of January. That's the day that Nicola went missing. They were called out at 13:17. Multi-agency search. Agencies involved: Bowland Pennine MRT, Northwest Ambulance Service, Lancashire Police, Police Dive Team, Lancashire Fire and Rescue, National Police Air Service Helicopter, LFRS Search Dog, LFRS Drone. The rescue team were requested by Lancashire Police to attend and assist in the ongoing search for a missing 45-year-old female who had gone missing in the St Michael's on Wyre area. A multi-agency search was conducted on Friday throughout the day for Nicola Bulley, who was last seen at about 9:15 on Friday, January the 27th, on the footpath by the river off Garstang Road in St Michael's on Wyre. Local areas were searched with partner agencies. However, Nicola remains outstanding at this time. So, I mean, there's your proof of everything that was, that river that we looked at before. Anyone who has seen her or has information about where she might be is asked to call 101. Quoting log 473 of January the 7th. For immediate sightings, please call 999. 25 volunteers of Bowland Pennine Mountain Rescue contributed to the search over an 8-hour period. 8 hours searching on the same day that she disappeared. Now, I want to go a little bit down the comments to just see, have the police asked for help with search from local community at all? And then somebody replied, I don't know if they asked, but there was a team of locals out searching this morning. And it says no Coast Guards involved. The Coast Guards were involved. Oh, there you go. Skip Coast Guard were requested. I thought that. I thought there were Coast Guards. No, so this lady then says, there are a few of us are happy to come and help. And this other lady says they're asking for people to help look. They were meeting at the Grapes pub, what time, etc. There's also a few set off from Inskip Church at 11 a.m. heading towards St Michael's. So this was at the time when they still wanted the public's help. So somebody had posted this. Nikki is still missing. If anyone has any dash cam footage, please get in touch. Walks are taking place around the St Michael's River where she was last seen. If anyone can help, it would be much appreciated. Now, there was something else. Yeah, any photo of her. There's the photo of her, bless her. Praying for a safe return, etc. There was a couple of comments I just wanted to look at because I thought you might find them interesting. Yeah, hope she's found safe and well. I saw all the police and the mountain rescue vehicles near the Grapes pub when I was going to Cleveland the other day. Poor lady, hope she's found. Yeah, lots of people. Now, this was interesting. So, I don't think, can I? Yeah. Well, somebody had posted, and you may have heard this rumour. I'd heard this rumour before. Well, it's not a rumour that someone posted it, But weird, but I saw a woman who looked very similar on the Bakerloo line on Sunday at around 6 p.m. And then, yeah, someone had said probably be more beneficial if you notified the police rather than just putting a comment on here. So people have talked about that since. And I'm just wondering if that was looked into. I presume it was. You know, we have to presume that the police did their job. Yeah, and then this lady says to her, maybe you should share to Lancashire Police page or call 101. There's a bit of talk about the Strava and the Fitbit, which, as we know, caused a lot of consternation. Okay, so just something, again, just thought you might find it interesting. I've found some of these, you know, looking back at things, very interesting. Oh, and here's another article that you might find interesting. So, the Crime and Security Officer of the Daily Mail has told the Police Superintendents Association that the best way to improve trust is to be more open with journalists. And he uses the Nicola Bulley case as an example. And he told English and Welsh police leaders that the circus of conspiracy theories surrounding the Nicola Bulley case could have been avoided if officers had briefed reporters about the case more thoroughly off record. And she warned that in future, similar unchecked speculation could see social media sleuths again meddling with crime scenes or confronting bereaved families. And she goes on to say a successful working relationship between the police service and the media is vital to trust. And ITV and Sky News were both censured over family intrusion by Ofcom during the Bulley case. Well, of course, both ITV and Sky News had been solicited to help by Paul Ansell. But then later, after Nicky was found, this sort of angry tirade came out about how they'd intrude future. Similar unchecked speculation could see social media sleuths again meddling with crime scenes. So she does refer to it as a crime scene. And then there was another person referring to it as a crime scene. So yes, Rustic Rach, another YouTuber. She did David Wilson, who is a criminologist. So yeah, David Wilson, Professor David Wilson also referred to it as a crime scene. So just interesting, that's all. Anyway, I think that's everything that I just wanted to say to you. Yep, that's about it. So anyway, just see what you think and let me know as always in comments. So remember to always live and love very carefully, very wisely, and I will see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Bye.